just the asana segment of everything, right? Where you can play around with some asana. And I said, who better to bring it on first than Maren? Because you always doing something crazy. I'm always watching the gram, and every day you got something crazy. You twisting your body in some concoction, doing something amazing. So I just wanted to bring you on, play around a little bit, and also give it opportunity for people to be able to hear what's actually happening in your body when you're in the asana, right? And hearing it from the person that's in it, per se, right? So today, how your body feel? How your wrist feeling? How you feeling good?
Whenever I'm stretching out my wrist, because it was never really part of my warm up so much until I took your class and until you and I played a lot and you talked about all of that wrist stuff, and it's really helped a lot.
And I think one thing people normally think of is that you have to have a whole bunch of upper body strength to get in arm balances, right? That's the normal first thing that comes to mind, but that's not necessarily the truth of it. A lot of it is flexibility, mobility, also, you know what I mean?
An understanding of leverage. I always say that when I'm teaching them in classes, that it's really about stacking your bones, stacking your joints. It's less about powering into a pose and squeezing your muscles, and it's more about using the weight of your body to stack on top of itself. Yeah.
Completely understood. So let's get into it.
Okay, so the way I like to start it, I separate my legs. Do you want me to talk about it first?
Yeah, you can talk about it. You can talk about it as you go into it as well. Yeah.
And then I bring my hands between my legs, trying to snuggle my shoulders underneath the crook of my knee.
Okay.
So the more you can get under there, the better. Lifting up your hips in order to get under there, and then I plant my hands. I try to plant them directly under where my shoulders would be. So I think about lining it up. Now, I'm not an alignment person. I'm just about the stacking so that it's less, you use less muscle, for sure. And then I sit back. As I sit back, I allow the weight of my feet to slowly come up off of the floor. When you starting with bent elbows, I think is really helpful because you're basically sitting on your elbows like a shelf. And then you slowly start to lean back and then start to lift up your legs. Now, if you wanted to straighten your arms or lift your feet up a little bit higher, or this is my new favorite, is kind of
leaning forward.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you try it again? And then we talk some bandhas into it, and then allow yourself to really get comfortable in it, right? You don't have to talk this time. You can get back into it comfortably, right? So you're stacking. Go ahead and draw the belly button in, right? Lift the pelvic floor some, and I'm coming to see if you can come into your Ujjayi breath. Breathe in it and relax in it. Nice. Fingertip engagement, gripping the ground with the fingertips, bandhas engaged. Nice. So with Firefly, did you feel a difference when you were engaging your bandhas?
I did. It was interesting because when I pull up on the Mula Bandha, I noticed my hips lifted a lot.
Yeah.
It's like the transverse abdominis to protect the spine, so everything kind of lifts up. The whole body lifts with Mula Bandha. Did Uddiyana Bandha do anything for you there, or not really? Was it strictly Mula Bandha?
I mean, I try to keep that engaged all the time.
Okay.
So you're drawing in from the beginning. You're already sucking in.
I am. I try to. I think it's just a natural thing now when I do anything. I'm already in it.
Gotcha.
And that definitely helps with the shoot back, right?
Yeah.
There you go. That one was better than the first one, right? Just had to get repetitions. Now, for somebody working Firefly, what's some of the areas of the body that should be flexible or open to get right into it? Is that hamstring? Are you dealing with hip flexibility, all of that?
Absolutely. It's definitely mostly hip flexibility, especially because you're trying to get the shoulder under there. And yeah, I think open hips and hamstrings in general, looser hamstrings are really helpful in any pose, any arm balance. It's just helpful to have that mobility in the back. Just to go back also with the Firefly, it is shoulder. There is a lot of shoulder engagement also because you're chaturanga in your arms. So you also need, some kind of it doesn't have to be a ton of muscle, but your body needs to know what it feels like to engage there. Yeah.
And a lot easier when the triceps are coming in, you know, when you're locking in to be able to engage up in here, opposed to being out.
I completely agree. I always say it's the opposite of a CrossFit push-up, right? Because the CrossFit guys push up like this.
Yeah.
For us, it's really pulling it in. I mean, I can't pull it in as much, though, when I'm underneath here.
Yeah.
But my elbows are really squeezing in towards each other way more than if they were out.
Got you.
A great way to start it, like in a class, is when you're in maybe a figure 4. And then I always go opposite the outside of my arm to my foot. So you're basically twisting your body towards your foot.
A lot of twist involved. A lot of hits.
A lot of twist. Yeah, so you need that mobility in your spine. Man. So once I get my foot there, oh, my phone is talking to myself. So once I get my foot there, I think of it again as a shelf.
Okay.
And again, we're back in the chaturanga. So you're squeezing your elbows in and you're leaning
now,
forward.
That loose arm, I don't know if it's your left or right because I know these videos, but that loose arm, are you shelving the hip on that, or is that loose? Are you keeping it loose and free, like in a traditional side crow?
So, I think it's preference. Usually, if you're using it as a shelf on your hip, it's much easier. So if I use it as a shelf, I'm leaning my hip directly on it and leaning forward so that I can start to kick that right foot out.
Nice.
But you can also do it without that.
Yeah.
So obviously that takes more shoulder engagement, and it's harder because you have to use your core more.
Yeah.
Less stacking and more belly engagement, squeezing up and in. Yeah. But the more you practice, you can do those harder ones.
You play with going from Grasshopper to Ekapata too? Because I just saw you doing it while you were in it, like, oh, she can release the foot and turn the hip.
You love doing the transitional.
Yeah, I love the transitions. I love you lean forward when you come out of it. It might be easier without the, there you go. I was going to say it might be easy, perfect though, you nailed it. I would say it could have been easier without the shelf. Because sometimes the shelf limits the hip movement because you shelf so you can't move. Like a lot of times when we teach the arm bounds, I always say that when that arm is loose, you allow yourself to transition just a little easier because the shelf can sometimes, the hip can get locked on the elbow. So if you're turning your hip on the shelf, but you still nailed it anyway. But for those who may suffer from tight hips, what's some of your hip mobility movements or stretches? What are some of your favorite stretches to open up the hips?
So usually in the beginning of class, before class has even started, I like taking a malasana.
Okay.
I actually, and it's an unfair advantage because I sit like this all the time. Like if I'm playing with my kids, like a board game, I'm usually sitting, even if it's, one knee up or both knees up. So I'm really constantly stretching in here. But when a class starts, I'll usually, or before the class starts, I usually take a malasana, and then maybe I'll grab my knees and start to do some shoulder dips. And the reason why that's good is because not only am I stretching out my shoulders, you can see the stretching happening. Not only am I stretching out my shoulders, but I'm pushing my hips away, my knee away from me. So I'm opening up.
Yeah.
I like to take this before I take and practice any arm balance in general, because open hips is really a key to a lot of the arm balances for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me if I'm a gymnast. I really was not a typical gymnast or a ballerina. I've taken like one ballet class in my entire life.
Okay.
So really all of the flexibility is just not giving up.
Yeah.
I'm a strong believer in tenacity. It's just, if you want something, you just don't give up. If you fall on your face a few times, you get right back up and you do it again, because that's really the trick to getting anything you want in your life.
Exactly. Even that tenacity with accomplishing those arm balances, right? And that mental strength, and almost eliminating the fear, somehow overcoming the fear of falling and being okay with falling.
And I'm somebody, I've fallen a lot in my life. I really have fallen, and I've hurt myself before. And but I guess I just don't let fear take over. I don't let fear dictate what I'm going to do. And I always believe
it's something about practicing at home when it comes to arm balances, because not only do we may have fear of falling, a lot of people have fear or anxiety with being embarrassed per se. So like to practice that in the class, thinking that everybody's going to look at them and things like that. So those arm balances and things are very key to work on that at home. I'm a firm believer of like doing this on your own time, even if it's not home, but just on your personal time to practice it, where you'd be more willing to fall and you're not worried about being embarrassed on top of that, you know?
It's so true. I think that especially for getting handstands and stuff like that, you're just not in a class the amount of hours that you need to be practicing. So what I always tell my students is what helped me with handstands is I would do them against the wall while I was cooking dinner. I would do them against the wall when my kids were watching TV. I would do that. I mean, wherever I found a wall, I broke so many like wall hangings I'd kick by accident, like come smashing down.